Unfortunately, we just lost that call, but we will reconnect with Femi Adebulu, who is a security expert, in just a moment. But until then, we were talking about elections. Now, just like Nigeria, Togo is equally preparing for presidential elections. The country has fixed April the 15th as the date, and the incumbent president, that's Faure Singbe, is expected to seek a third term in office in defiance of opposition calls for him to step aside. The president's ruling rally of the Togolese people, that's RPT, is due to hold a party convention on Wednesday, during which it's expected to nominate him as its candidate for the polls. The opposition, however, has called upon the government to implement an agreed presidential term limit under which he would not be allowed to stand for re-election. The incumbent president has not publicly stated whether he will seek another term in office, and he was installed as president with army support when his father, who ruled the West African country for 38 years, died back in 2005. He later stepped down under regional pressure, but won an election months later and was re-elected for a second term in 2010. Now we've been able to reconnect with Femi Adebulu, who's a security expert. Femi, thank you so much for staying on the line.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, you gave us your view about what the collaborative efforts between Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon in countering the Boko Haram sect, but then we shifted our attention to the forthcoming elections. Now, we did see a very ugly incident, for instance, last week in Port Harcourt during a political rally, and there are fears that there could be more of such, according to the police. Now, as civilians, what should we do in order to make sure that, such incidents were not affected in such? Should we just desist from attending political rallies altogether?
Well, even though it is expected that the political gladiators would have warned all their supporters and followers and not to do anything that would jeopardize the election, this as it may now, what is expected of people is to be very, very careful. Political rallies, I think individuals have to select which political gathering to actually associate him or herself with. But I want to say that it will not in any way deter people from casting their ballot, because that's very, very important. You may choose to get out of any political rally that tends towards violence or that has the potential of metamorphosing into violence, but that of election is sacrosanct. So I wouldn't advise that people should be in rallies and be following people, because anything can happen. As long as the political gladiators, the leaders, are not able to caution their people, caution the people they hire to perpetrate mayhem, I cannot guarantee that anybody should attend such rallies.
Now, it's about 30 days before we cast our votes. The government, the military, and police are clearly doing what they can to ensure the safety of the electorate. But on our part, what safety tips can you give us as a security experts in order to ensure that we stay safe during this period?
Yeah, especially in those areas that are violent prone. I expect that what the government has said, that they're going to mobilize the army and let's just say the armed forces to guard those areas. I think the idea is commendable, because this we are in a state of war. So nothing is too much to do in order to save the lives of people and their property. So what I advise is that people should be very, very careful, make sure that they are under the protective custody of this army and other people in uniform, so that they will not come to harm. And also those who are prone to, those who live in the northeast, for instance, areas that are prone to all this IED and all that. So I will also advise that they should be very careful and look very critically at people who are suspicious, who move with suspicion, especially those whose missions seem not to be clear. Those, who look suspicious, they should be careful of them. And also keep very good environment that is clean, so that anything like IED that can be hidden under any any death will not be their own doing. So these are the things. Of course, it's a delicate period we are in. It does not stop people from actually exercising their franchise. They should just be careful.
Femi Adebulu, thank you so much for speaking with us on Network Africa. We appreciate your time and your input.
Thank you for having me.
Now, in other news, in a very unexpected move, Guinea's President Alpha Condé on Tuesday replaced the government minister charged with organizing this year's presidential election, as indeed it's a season of elections, and he was replaced with an army general. A statement read on the state-owned television gave no reason for the change, which saw General Borema Condé considered to be among the president's closest allies in Guinea's influential army, named Minister of Territorial Administration. Now, he replaces Alassane Condé, a civilian who had held the position since President Condé named his first government following his election in late 2010. He will continue to serve as a government minister with an advisory role to the president. However, we must note that none of these three men are related, even though they bear the same last name. Condé's election marked the end of the 2008 to 2010 military junta that seized power following the death of longtime dictator Lansana Conté. However, the polls were tainted by deadly riots and opposition complaints of fraud. However, the country is currently struggling to ensure that things go safe and sound as regards this election. Beg your pardon. Now to South Africa. Lawyers for jailed South African Olympic athlete Oscar Pistorius have launched a legal bid to prevent prosecutors from appealing against his acquittal on murder charges. Judge Thokozile Masipa ruled in December that prosecutors could appeal against the acquittal. She'd sentenced Pistorius to 5 years in prison for the lesser charge of culpable homicide or manslaughter. Pistorius shot dead his girlfriend Eva Steenkamp in February 2013, mistaking her for a burglar, according to him. And while prosecutors argue that he shot her after a row at his upmarket home in the capital, Pretoria. The double amputee athlete was acquitted by Judge Masipa of both premeditated murder and the lesser charge of common law murder. In South African law, this charge applies if the accused knew they might kill someone but still went ahead with their course of action. On the line now is our South Africa correspondent, Betty Dibia. Betty, thank you so much for speaking with us again on Network Africa.